This is Griff Jenkins, your humble DC correspondent, filling in for Brian Kilmeade on the Great Brian Kilmeade Show. And what a day to be on the air with you. The historic day, this accomplishment of releasing the hostages, the 20 remaining living hostages, and the prospect of a new era of peace in the Middle East. I want to go now to our special guest, retired Army Captain Doug Truax. And Captain, thank you for joining us. We originally want to talk to you a little bit about how the military is being impacted as we enter day 13 of Chuck Schumer's government shutdown. And I can go into why I think it's appropriate to call it the Schumer shutdown, but it is obviously impacting Americans across the country, particularly those service members. But first, such unbelievable historic news coming out of the Middle East, out of President Trump's speech to the Israeli Knesset. And, Captain, I just want to set you up a little bit of some, I'm sure you listened to some of it, but it really, it's words and sound bites that will be in the history books forever. Here's a little bit of President Trump this morning, cut 3.
The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day, and to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those two everlasting vows: never forget and never again.
And Captain, aside from the historic nature of the speech, it's really the story of how President Trump was able to accomplish this that will be what is remembered for years to come. What do you think? What's your reaction to all the news?
Well, that's right. And thanks for having me on, Griff. It's a great day, and it's great that he's our president. I think he got elected. A huge part of why he got elected, his default position is to seek peace. We don't have troops on the ground over there. We're doing everything we can to help everybody. And this really goes back all the way to the Abraham Accords, where he really started putting people together and creating alliances. And it was all built around how do we isolate the Iranians over time? And Hamas is a proxy of the Iranians. And then this horrible day, October 7th, comes, and we go through this, this goes on, and it's been difficult. That day was very difficult. The hostage situation has been horrible. But he saw it through. Netanyahu saw it through. And you get to a place with the Hamas leadership, and they begin to realize that the entire region is arrayed against them, whether they say it out loud or not. I mean, there's a lot of politics involved with those allied states out there, where they don't want to come out and just say, oh, we're for the Israelis. But they're definitely against Hamas, and they want to put the Iranians in a box. And we saw this with the bombing of Iran and everything. We're pushing them back into their box because nobody wants these guys doing what they want to do. The entire region wants peace, except for them. And so this is a great day, a moment where we can say, look, we found a way out of this. Hamas is definitely going away over time here. I know there's talk of rearming and things like that, but however, we got him to this point. The president got him to this point, and with the plan of his that got us to here. And so going forward, it's a great moment. I hope it can hold, but it definitely shows that the alliance building behind the scenes in the region is really paying huge dividends now.
In phase 2, the challenges ahead are so difficult, and the truce, the ceasefire holding now, is so tenuous at this moment. But you put your finger on what I was talking a little bit earlier with my friend Charlie Hurd about, and that was you took away the same thing we did, which was Iran. Iran is such an important part of this. The demonstration of when President Trump on the campaign trail, and even as he began to take office, talked about peace through strength and being a peacemaker, despite his critics saying that he was going to start World War III across the planet and civilization was going to cease to exist. I thought the Iran stuff was so important. I kind of, as a host, I don't like to replay different sound bites, but I'm going to violate my own rule today because I played this about 30 minutes ago. I'm going to play it again because I think this is the moment that is really one that may actually be the key to whether or not we see Middle East peace spread across Middle East, and it is Iran. That's the game changer. President Trump spoke directly to Iran and reached out to them after we watched Operation Midnight Hammer take out and set back for years, perhaps decades, the Iranian nuclear program. Here is a little bit of what President Trump said about Iran in that speech in the Israeli Knesset. I want you to listen to it and get your reaction. Cut 5.
Yet even to Iran, whose regime has inflicted so much death on the Middle East, the hand of friendship and cooperation is open. I'm telling you, they want to make a deal. That's all I do in my life. I make deals. I'm good at it. I've always been good at it. And I know when they want. Even if they said, we don't want to make a deal, I can tell you they want to make a deal. All right, they do. They want to make a deal, and we're going to see if we can do something, because this is crazy what's happening, and we're not going to have this anymore. Neither the United States nor Israel bear the people of Iran any hostility. We merely want to live in peace. We don't want any looming threats over our heads, and we don't want to even think in terms of nuclear destruction. It's not going to happen, never will happen.
I just don't think you can play that soundbite enough. Your reaction?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, he's a deal maker. The interesting thing about this situation, though, is it gets easier to deal with your opponent when they run out of options. And with the Abraham Accords over time, what they've been doing behind the scenes is we've been essentially helping the entire region prepare themselves for missile attacks and drone attacks from the Iranians. So it gets to a place where all the allied groups in the Middle East begin to realize that the Iranians are not what they once were at all, or what they may have even been putting themselves out to be, I should say. But the fear factor begins to decrease. And then he's got the option to go in and say, look, guys, you need to have more moderates in control here, and you need to come to a better place, because, one, you can't do what you wanted to do all these years because you're incapable of it now because of the way we've set things up around you. And two, if it doesn't end well for you, the guys at the top, you think about Libya and Gaddafi and all these guys. I mean, it doesn't end well when some of these guys go down if they go down with a fight. And so I think that the Iranians are beginning to say to themselves, maybe we should consider different paths here. And with the president talking like that, I think they have every incentive, at least as far as that goes, to come to the table. Now, will they be, good faith negotiators? Well, that's another topic, but at least we're on that path.
You bet, and they're not good faith partners by every step of the path that we've seen them in their recent history. But I mean, going all the way back to Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, founding the Islamic Republic. But it is interesting that when President Trump is using this peace through strength, Iran now knows what the alternative is. And Iran is facing a incredibly isolated reality economically. And what the Abraham Accords accomplished, and hopefully will continue to accomplish, is to set up economic opportunities, commerce across the Middle East. And Iran is going to be faced with a very difficult choice, and particularly the mullahs and the radicals in charge in Iran, like, hey, we've got a choice here. We can cease to exist, or we can get on board. And they would obviously, as President Trump said to them, have an opportunity. And President Trump has proven, as he did with the Palestinians, he made a promise that everyone would be treated fairly. I mean, that's sort of what gains him respect in being the deal maker. He loves to say he's the deal maker, but I think there are principles of his deal making which is garnering him the respect he needs. I wonder, though, Captain, we'll have to have a conversation as President Trump goes to Egypt and sits down with these 20 world leaders, and they talk about the way forward and the other parts of his 20-point peace plan. Well, as a military leader, that President Trump said the war's over. But ending wars is very difficult. The IDF is drawn back, but they're not going to get all the way out of Gaza until there is some international force in there, which is yet to be determined and hopefully will involve Arab countries. This is a very difficult, aside from even getting Hamas to disarm, this is a very difficult task ahead.
Yeah, it really is, because history has shown us that it just takes one moment and it can all go south. And I think that, the Hamas leadership has learned over time here that the Israelis are not going to back down. So, you could go down that path and end up right back where you were, but the path they are on is total destruction. So this has been an exit ramp for them at this moment. And so I think that everybody's prepared. We want peace as much as we possibly can want it, but you have to be prepared to go back to combat if you need to. And these guys got to stay on this path. It's like this whole thing, like we're talking about the Iranians and good faith and all that stuff. Yeah, that's great. Maybe they talk about wanting economic advantage going forward, but we got to keep an eye on it, because this is, frankly, they're sneaky. And you got to keep an eye on them because you never know what's going on. Look what happened October 7th, right? And so we have to keep pushing them into a situation in a box that we feel comfortable with going forward. And if they come out of it, they have to pay a price. That's the only way you can do it because they're bad actors, and they've proven that. And so that's the way forward. Peace through strength is what you got to do.
Captain, I'm coming up on a break. Can I keep you? I want to leave some time on the backside because I do want to address the government shutdown and how it's impacting the military. Can you stay with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Captain Doug Truax here on the Brian Kilmeade Show. This is Griff Jenkins. We'll be right back.
Some federal bureaucrats are going to have to get laid off. This is not a situation that we're excited about. We want the government to reopen, but Chuck Schumer and the Democrats decided to shut down the government, and we have to deal with the consequences in the administration.
This is Griff Jenkins filling in for Brian Kilmeade on the Great Brian Kilmeade Show, and we're glad to have Captain Doug Truax, former U.S. Army captain, retired, joining us to talk a little bit about this. And Captain, thanks for staying with me here because I feel like it's very important to get into this. And, I have said, because my background is a journalist, I've been a reporter for 20 plus years at Fox News. And, Chuck Schumer has voted 13 times on a clean resolution, a simple, nonpartisan, couple of page continuing resolution, keep the government open. And Chuck Schumer was told by both Majority Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson that, hey, we will negotiate over these extension of Obamacare health subsidies, but not while the government's shut down. Just pass this. You've already passed this before 13 times, and yet they didn't. And now you're seeing the reality in just the 15th, I guess, military members across the country will miss their paychecks. Your thoughts about all of this?
Well, that's right. He's pushing it pretty hard, and I think that it's going to backfire on him because I think most people, certainly his base, is for it. But I think the question really comes down to the people in the middle, the moderates. I'm a big time conservative, so I know where I stand on all this. But the moderates are watching this, going, "Well, hey, wait a minute." They're hearing what you just said, and they're thinking, "Why is it happening like this? Why can't we just kind of work our way through this?" And I think the Republicans might have a point about those Obamacare subsidies. Of course, secretly, this is how they're trying to keep socialized medicine alive, is through those subsidies over time. But anyways, we can be working on this and trying to figure it out. I think with the military thing, it goes right back to what we've always said from the conservative side. And I think most common sense Americans would say, the number one role of government is keeping the people safe. And that was the defunding the police piece, and all that. But if your military is not taken care of, if you don't ever want to get a situation where in peacetime, anybody in the military is thinking, am I not going to get paid? Because that's not a good sign going forward. The Chinese would love that if we got to a situation where oh, look, their military is having problems because they're not getting paid. So, President Trump rightly has directed Secretary Hegseth to use other funds to get them paid. So I think we're fine there. And, we'll see how long this goes on. But I think we averted the immediate crisis on that. But I think the larger question is, just like with the Doge stuff and everything else, you keep hearing all this, essential government tasks, and then you hear non-essential government tasks. And we're all thinking to ourselves, well, what is that? Why is there such a thing as a non-essential government task? And so we got to keep chipping away at this. I think most of the people in the middle are beginning to say, well, I know my aunt, she's still getting her Social Security and all these things that are still happening as we go along. But what exactly are we talking about? And if you get into the subsidies, you start learning that, wow, a lot of people can make a lot of money and still get their health care paid for. I don't understand what's going on here. So that's why I think he's going to lose over time. As more people dig into it, the more they're going to see this doesn't make any sense,
I think, Captain, that Chuck Schumer may have another headache on the horizon. And to be fair, we don't have confirmation from Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York that they're actually going through with this because she wouldn't talk to Fox's camera when we asked her just a few days ago. But I don't know if you're aware. So the Chairwoman Kirsten Gillibrand of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee was holding a big dollar fundraiser today in Napa Valley. Wine and cheese. Amongst the host is Senator Ashley Brooks from Maryland. Maryland is the 5th largest employer of federal jobs to include military. She has more than 48,000 military employees in the state of Maryland, and yet she's choosing to go out to Napa Valley, where Democrats attending this fundraiser will do a wine tour and have a fancy dinner, wine and cheese. I checked the hotel rates to see, if I wanted to go to the Hotel Yultland in the Vineyard Mountains of Napa Valley, and you can get a basic room for $800. You can get a suite for $1,100. And I'm just wondering if this is, the look that Democrats really want when there's a lot of finger pointing, deciding who's to blame. Democrats blame Republicans. Republicans blame Chuck Schumer. It just takes 5 Democrats to get on board to alleviate the pain of the American people. And yet they can't come up with those 5. And Democrats are presumably out in California at a high dollar wine and cheese fundraiser. Your thought?
Yeah. Not surprised. Not surprised at all. They have completely lost track of the optics on this. And it just goes to their heart too. They'd rather go out and raise money around it and, come back and lie to their constituents. Oh yeah, I'm working hard on this. And they're not at all. I mean, the next day maybe they got dinner the next night at the French Laundry with Gavin Newsom, this is the world they live in now. It's crazy.
It
crazy.
is that I'm glad you mentioned the French Laundry. It's that hypocrisy that the American people have lost any trust in Washington, in politicians. And to be fair, there was a time in Washington, the Tip O'Neill era, as they like to refer to it, where Republicans and Democrats would go at each other, but then they would realize at the end of the day, hey, if we don't come up with something to deliver for the American people, then they're going to throw us out of office. And you look today, the polling for both parties, to be fair, has never been lower amongst Americans approving of their elected leaders. And it's a sad thing, but my heart goes out. I do hope that Secretary Hicks has planned to get military members paid, but then there's still some hundreds of thousands of furloughed government employees. Captain Doug Truax, thank you for taking time, and thank you for your service to our country, sir.
All right. Thanks, Griff.
All right.